when we were on, Ken Belanger had no idea what the Brass Bonanza was. Now that you've heard it, do you remember?
Not a clue.
You have no idea what the Brass Bonanza was. You still don't know.
You know what? One thing I do know is I know why the Whalers are so shitty. Nobody wanted to score a goal to listen to that song.
So you have heard it.
I've heard it since last week since you've talked about it, but I don't recollect it in training camp. I don't think the players would let them play it in training camp. That's why I never heard it.
So you went through your archives. You went back over the last couple of games that you played with the Whalers, and you looked at it and saw that you clearly didn't score any goals with them, right?
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
So
and I'm glad I didn't.
You just don't like the song. You don't like the history of the Hartford Whalers, do you?
You know what? It's not the Whalers' history. It's more the song. It just baffles me that was played in an arena, that the fans actually are the players. Usually when you score a goal, it's supposed to be a pump-up song, not country and western.
So over your right shoulder there, is that Ron Francis?
That is the original Ken Belanger draft jersey, 92 in the Montreal Forum.
What now? Is there a 92 on the back?
There is 92 on the back.
Did you get booed because you're an Ontario guy?
No, you know what? That was the European draft year when they come over for free agency. So there was more Europeans drafted than Canadians. So I think that overshadowed the Canadians.
It seems like every year when the draft is in Montreal and a North American guy gets drafted that's not from Ontario, they cheer him. The second it's an Ontario guy who gets drafted, he's getting booed. But you didn't get booed at all?
I didn't get booed at all. I think I misinterpreted. They seen the Belanger in the back and they got a couple chairs.
All right, good. All right, let's get down to it. Andrew Ference had a lot of comments to say about the Dan Paille hit. Dan Paille hit Raymond Sawada, got 4 games for it. After the game, to reporters, to the media, he said, quote, "I mean, it's a bad hit, right? That's what they're trying to get rid of. And you can't be a hypocrite and complain when it happens to you and say it's fine when your teammate does it." End quote. Do you have a problem with that at all?
Absolutely. Now, let's not forget here, the game of hockey is a team sport. Everybody works together. Everybody ropes, everybody rides is the theory. One guy goes, we all go in. The reason what we talked about last week was happening in the game is the lack of respect for teammates. Everybody goes in as a business now. Everyone's their own individual. And the repercussion of talking about it to another teammate now, how are they supposed to sit beside each other on the bus or the airplane, icing each other down from the previous game, and the guy's throwing him under the bus to the media? I mean, if he's got an issue, talk about it to him, not to the media.
What about, this is the Boston Bruins team that has been decimated by injuries on dirty hits. Look at Patrice Bergeron and Marc Savard. Their 2 best offensive players have gone down with concussions, and Savard's career is in jeopardy right now because of one. So he's basically saying, we got to get these out of the game, regardless of whether it's your teammate or not. I didn't have a problem with it. I don't know why guys did.
Well, that's because maybe you never played in the game of hockey with the sport where these guys are in the trenches, like you said. They're in the trenches with each other. They're digging every night to protect each other. When one of your guys goes down, you're there for him. When one of your guys having a tough time, you don't throw him under the bus. I mean, we all know that the hit wasn't a real clean hit. I mean, the league obviously made that obvious by giving him a 4-game suspension. Do you think that it's going to make that hit any better by Ference saying we don't tolerate this stuff when it's his own teammate? I mean, how are they supposed to sit around the table together? It doesn't make sense.
But I have a problem. I have a problem with it when a guy goes out there with an intent to injure somebody and nobody chirps him on it. Nobody calls him on it. That's the problem with the game today. It's become this old boys club where nobody wants to confront a guy who's done something wrong, and it's almost like you get carte blanche to do it from your own teammates. Like, isn't that part of the problem today?
You know what? I'm not sitting here justifying a dirty hit. I think that's an issue in itself. I won't sit here and stand for the fact of throwing your own team under the bus. Maybe that's just me as a player in the role I had to play, but that just shows right there where the lack of respect that each player has for his teammates this day and age. There's none.
So don't you think if this was a different team, let's say this was the Maple Leafs, or let's say this was the Philadelphia Flyers, teams that hadn't been decimated by concussions, don't you think maybe the atmosphere might be a little bit different? But this is Andrew Ference, a guy who, he's gone to war with the Boston Bruins, and this has been a huge issue for them, the concussion issue. And if they're trying to get this out of the game, then doesn't he have a right to say, well,
no.
Maybe you want to get rid of it?
I think behind closed doors that Andrew Ference would have been sitting down by the coach and GM and told him that was wrong. He's divided the dressing room into his comments. Half the guys saying, hey, great comment. Half the guys saying, what are you doing? So I believe that, if I'm a coach, I'm suspending a guy for making comments like that in my team. How does that show unity? Right?
What, have you ever seen anything like this? When you played, has anything like this ever happened?
No, not dirty hits have happened. Has a guy ever thrown another guy under the bus? Absolutely not. What does that? What does that tell everybody?
In the history of hockey, in the history of hockey, I'm sure somebody's been thrown under the bus. But you were there when Marty McSorley two-handed Donald Brashear over the head, weren't you?
Absolutely. I was right on the bench.
So what happened after the game? Did anybody go up to McSorley and say, like, what the hell are you doing?
Nobody had to. Everybody knew. I mean, let's not forget, we're all grown men here. These are all grown men in the game. Guys understand what they've done wrong. Do you think someone needs to be reining to the fact of the media to saying, I can't believe you slashed him in the head. What were you thinking? The guys know after the game. I mean, a 3-year-old kid knows when he does something wrong. Now, these are grown men on the ice. So for someone to hand a repercussion down to give the guy, what are you doing? To me, there's no space in the game for it.
Doesn't it just say that today that there's a lack of respect in the game? Like, isn't this a huge problem?
Absolutely. And when you play, player.
You retired not many years ago. And in today's game, is it not totally different? Is the lack of respect totally not there from when you played?
Absolutely. You're Sagan sitting in the dressing room. You're hearing Ference, a leader, saying this about his own teammate. Now, what is he thinking? Is this okay now to rip your teammates in public? Like, is that how you win?
Maybe this is how we get it out of the game. Maybe that's what is needed from players. Maybe that, guys on their own team, maybe they need to know that it's not okay to do that, and they need to hear it from their own teammates. Maybe
you think he's feeling shame in the corner right now because Ference reiterated the fact it was a dirty hit up, so he's pissed off. I'd run him in practice.
You'd run him in practice?
Absolutely. He'd be the first guy going down. Accidental body check, center ice.
How often did you get on the ice with the top line in practice?
You know what? The red jerseys are the top line, and the purple jerseys now were the fourth line. And what were the injury ones when you were with Boston? The injury ones would probably have been the Boston. They would have been probably like red.
Yeah, they're not the yellow ones anymore.
Not the yellow ones.
So did you ever skate with the top line?
I did. I skated the top line a couple shifts, scored a couple of big goals, and shut it down. It was too easy.
You're not the type of guy who celebrated in practice, were you?
I used to. I used to do a lot of top shelves in practice. That was the only time I get to celebrate. It was hard to celebrate.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Did you?
Absolutely.
Who was a guy who shot too high in practice? In all your years of playing, who was one guy who just shot too high?
Well, I was probably one of those guys because I was always going shelf in practice. Felix Potvin was one of the goalies, and those guys always knew I was coming down. And I prided my practices that my practices were my games. So when I scored a goal in practice, I celebrated. I pumped. I did whatever I could do.